The Billings Motorcycle Club invites you to be a part of 100 years of pro hill climb history at our 100th anniversary of the Great American Pro Hill Climb on July 27th and 28th during 2018. This pro hill climb is the oldest and the longest running motorcycle event in history. Pretty cool.
A hot day in Billings, Montana kicks off our annual Great American Professional Motorcycle Hill Climb, the oldest hill climb in our nation and possibly the world, with the biggest champion purse, of course. The spectators are waiting and the riders are ready. Speaking of riders, we have an entertaining motley crew of talent to be sure, all of whom will be accelerating up this Great American Hill on the latest motorcycle models that include a vast array of special modifications as allowed according to the Race Rules Handbook. Refreshments are available, including an ice cold pale ale for just a nickel from our title sponsor, the Billings Brewery, or a taut and quenching lemonade for a penny. Prepare yourselves for a spectacular show that we hope to continue for decades to come, right here along the Yellowstone River in Billings, Montana.
During the year 1914 in Billings, Montana, when a horse was still a common method of transportation, a motorcycling group formed, and they called their membership the Billings Motorcycle Club, otherwise known as the BMC. At the start, the BMC held group rides around the region on developed roads, but it was only a matter of time until the lure of off-road riding would motivate the club to lease and eventually acquire its own land for motorcycling. Just 4 years after the BMC's inception, the BMC hosted its first annual Great American Pro Hill Climb in 1918, which remains the oldest event in motorcycle history. Now, an unbelievable century later, the BMC will host its 100th anniversary of the Great American Pro Hill Climb of 2018. This is the oldest and longest running motorcycle event in history, and throughout all these decades, it's still put on by the BMC's impressively active volunteer membership that is also responsible for over 20 other current moto events the club puts on each year, including supercross, motocross, flat track, cross country, sand drags, and endurocross. In the early days of the Great American Hill Climb, motorcycle technology was still very new, as was anything motorized. With only a few available American motorcycle brands in Billings, Montana at the time, the Harley-Davidson and Indian models were the pioneer hill climbing machines of the Great American Pro Hill Climb. These bikes were heavy, lacked agility, and required a substantial amount of pre-hill runway to have a chance of crossing the finish line at the top. Most of the riders rode to the event on the same bike they would compete in, and many of those competitors needed to ride home after a devastating bike crash and/or body injury. Competitors over the 100 years of this vertical adventure will tell you that no Great American Pro Hill Climb has ever been easy, but has always been centered on a challenging course, a decent bike, fair competition, a champion's heart, and maybe a little bit of luck. For a century, generations of spectator and competitor families have gathered at the annual Great American Pro Hill Climb in Billings, Montana. Since motorcycling was relatively new, the idea of a truly protective helmet was unknown and would take years to consider and refine. Most of the early motorcyclists wore nothing on their heads but a little hair pomade, a soft cap, or maybe an aviator's head covering. Understanding the physical risks at a high-speed pro hill climb like the Great American, many of the riders soon began wearing the soft helmets being developed in our American sport of football at the time. Other safety equipment was not available either. Competitors wore what they went to work in, left home in, or even mowed the lawn in. As motorcycling evolved over 100 years, so did the Great American Pro Hill Climb, its competitors, and the modest volunteer club that started it all, the Billings Motorcycle Club. Today's Great American Pro Hill Climb Championship is held on the same BMC Montana dirt. It's a very different experience from back in those early days. The Great American Hill is known as the hill climbing capital of the world. And if you hold your head close enough to the dirt, you might just hear ghost whispers from riders of 100 years past. Today's hill climb bike technology is exploding, the vertical dirt becoming even more extreme. Newer generations of riders continue to get behind the bars, and riding under the lights at night with the two riders side-by-side bar banging showdown are all part of today's Great American Pro Hill Climb attractions in Billings, Montana. These riders are just like the early pioneers. They live to ride and ride to live. And let me tell you, it is one hell of a show. The hill terrain over 100 years has evolved into an ever-changing and gnarly array of new vertical dirt challenges and features that produce a new champion every year. The Great American Hill is for competition only. There is no pre-event practice for anyone. Riders sign up, they show up, they stand for the national anthems, and they go up. It's the Great American Way. During the last century, every rider comes to know the roar of the crowd, the test of this relentless hill, and the passion in their own heart. The Great American Hill itself has no prejudice. Champions, seasoned pros, and rookies all share a rare camaraderie because in the end, they're all on the same Great American team with a mission to have an incredible time, entertain the crowd, and tackle the hill like a true warrior on hallowed ground. Spectators can get a VIP tour up close and personal at the starting line and visit the top. They also have a chance to meet any of the talented riders and, of course, the superhero volunteer BMC event staff.
Superfly Thailand!
You would think an event of this magnitude and longevity is an incredible feat to host, and it is. It has always required a dedicated volunteer team from its creator, the Billings Motorcycle Club, and just as importantly, strong sponsorships and die-hard community participation. For 100 years, national and local individuals, communities, and businesses have been a part of the Great American Pro Championship Hill Climb. So join us for the 100-year anniversary of the Great American Pro Championship Hill Climb. Be a part of the 100th anniversary of the oldest motorcycle event in history, right here in Billings, Montana. Talk to us and mark your calendar for July 27th and 28th of 2018. This event attracts pro competitors and spectators from national and international locations, and this year will be an outstanding 100-year show for the whole family. Truly, it's hard to believe. In 1889, Montana became an official state of the United States. In 1914, the Billings Motorcycle Club was formed. In 1918, the first annual Great American Pro Championship Hill Climb. And now, during 2018, will be the 100th year of the Great American Pro Championship Hill Climb here in Billings, Montana. Learn more about participating in this event by visiting bmcmontana.com. Send an email to info@bmcmontana.com. Visit Billings Motorcycle Club on Facebook or talk to a BMC member today. We want you to be a part of 100 years of Pro Hill Climb history.